Let's say that you've got your first character to level 100 and you spend the past 2 to 3 weeks farming the legendary gear doing 10 plus 10 every day. And now you got them all, and you're ready to take on some of the more in-game challenges, like the Oculus. Except when you get to the Oculus channel, you realize that none of the parties would take you there. So what do you do at this point? The purpose of this video is trying to help players get ready for the Oculus and maximize their chances to get into pub parties as much as possible. This video is not meant to be a boss pattern or gimmick video. However, I have left a few of those down in the description, so make sure you check them out. This discussion is focused on damage dealers and synergy classes. Buffers, they have a similar path to gearing up, but there are some differences here and there. Lastly, the description has time codes and additional resources, so make sure you check them out if you need them. The Oculus has one characteristic that makes it stand out from other in-game dungeons. Failing a gimmick is not always an instant wipe and retreat. You're gonna need a lot of potions, you're gonna need the satyr to heal you, but you won't just fail. In other words, Oculus can be brute forced with enough persistence and good piloting. As long as you stay alive, you can win. That also means having enough damage is an important failsafe to completing the Oculus. The more damage you have, the more time you have to mess up Oculus gimmick and try again. From my experience, the typical cut line for Oculus is between 30 billion to 40 billion in damage during a 20-second sandbag testing. This includes things like potions, Warlord's potions, and undiluted strength potions. And this kind of number is at the point where I first got my character through. However, notice that this is not something level 100 legendary sets can easily achieve with budget of chance or optimizations or plus 10. Neither can Prey with level 100 mixed pieces with what I call early game enchants and plus 11 weapons can achieve. So the bottom line for Oculus is you need level 100 epics at least mixed in with Preygrad or level 100 gear sets along with optimizations. So at this point, you have two major tasks you need to do to get that all-important epic gear. The first is collecting the epic gear themselves, and the second is gathering the resources you need for optimizations. Before we dive into more detail, I'm putting in a quick TLDR here, which really is a to-do list in order of priority. First of all, you should run 2+2 normal every day. You should also run, obviously, the Guide of Wisdom normal as much as possible. Learn raid mechanics to attend at least Fiend War pub and Prey pub, or Gaimo if you can't join pub parties. Learn Pandemonium War mechanics to get Talisman. And run Anton Subjugation a few times a week to buy some very nice critical chance beats. Optionally, you can run Luke as well a few times a week to buy some nice stat beats. And lastly, and possibly most importantly, you want to save gold. Lots of gold. Gold is used for a bunch of stuff: reinforcement, enchantment, buying title ores pets from other players and auction house. So yeah, you're gonna need a lot of that. Now, let's get into more details on each of these topics, and also remember there are time codes in the description and some links I left there. To get the epic gear you need for Oculus, you basically have to run 3 different dungeons: Basement of Pain, Black Shrine, and Guide of Wisdom. Basement of Pain and Black Shrine are referred to as 2+2s because the first 2 runs of each of these dungeons provide a special reward that have an increased chance to drop epics in the end dungeon cards. And this is basically the safety net in 100 cap. You should do it every day, even if you don't do anything else with the characters. With a clean full level 100 legendary gear set, it's going to be difficult to do 2+2 solo, so I do recommend partying up with other people at the start until you get some optimizations like enchants and avatars and emblems. The other dungeon that provides epic gear is the Guide of Wisdom, which requires 8 FP and 18 times Sky Stones per run. The biggest blocker to running God of Wisdom is your stock of Time Sky Stones, of which you need thousands upon thousands of. And the most efficient sources of Time Sky Stones is Epic Souls. And the easiest sources of Epic Souls is raids to get Undaunted Determinations and Dawning Crevice from level 95 content for all epics to disassemble. A character with full level 100 legendary gear and some budget optimizations and enchants, raids should be fairly doable. Fiend War should accept a character like that pretty easily in pub parties. Prey raid may be more difficult, especially for pure damage dealer characters. Sometimes synergy classes can sneak into green parties, but if you can't, then run solo Prey Guide mode instead. The guide mode is easy enough and is actually a decent introduction to boss patterns in raids at the very least. Regardless, this does mean that you have to learn the raid mechanics, and for that purpose I've left a few guides to Fiend War and Prey raid that's personally helped me quite a bit. The other source of epic souls is through disassembling old epics, and one great source of that is the Dawning Crevice dungeon. 2 times a day has a chance to drop Harlem epics and also provides the fragments every single run that can be used to buy recipes from the Strawberry Nose Stella NPC to upgrade Harlem legendary gear into epics. Try to run Dawning Crevice on as many characters that can do it as possible, and on each character supplement with 4 daily runs of Assault mode once every few days. Oh, one quick note before we move on to the other topics is the Pit of Incarceration. With level 100 legendary gear, Pit of Incarceration 3 and 4 are now doable, and you can run them to get a weapon anywhere between 2 to 3 months. However, the box that you get is completely random. It will be your class, so it is usable, but it's not necessarily the one you want. It also costs 3 million in gold. So take it what you will, it's nice to do. While epic gear is the most important aspect of your equipment, gathering optimizations for said equipment is just as important to squeeze out as much damage as possible. This includes, in order of priority, Operation Hope Swap Set, Weapon Reinforcement Refinement, what I call early endgame enchantments, talismans, titles, auras, and pets, and clone avatars and emblems. While some of these things are actually cash out items like the titles and the clone avatars, you can still get them from other players and the auction house using gold. Nearly all of these optimizations need gold. Reinforcement costs gold, enchant cards cost gold, cash out items obviously cost gold to buy from other players. So let's start with that. Let's talk gold, or rather how to make gold. Here are some of the methods I personally use on a day-to-day basis. Disaster Sector with level 100 legendary gear, level 2 should be very easy, and level 3 is doable. 80 Terrariums a day can be turned in for 6,000-ish gold. Redtail Jonathan in Central Park also sells Essences of the Rift and Vestiges of Hope that can be sold for quite a bit of profit. I also go back to run 10 Land of Memories and 10 Bottomless Tunnels for 4 days a week, and 20 Ghent Palace runs for 1 day a week. These dungeons should be easily soloable, and the materials can be turned in every week at each dungeon's respective merchants for card albums. Save the ones that I want and sell the ones that I don't want to the auction house for a decent sum of profit. From 2+2 dungeons, I will also save the time crystals. These are tradable versions of Time's Guide Stones. I don't use them, instead I save them and sell them on the auction house as they are quite pricey at the moment. From Dawning Crevice, I also get the Rift Response Stones. These can still be converted into Time's Guide Stones, so they're still quite valuable to players who want to spend the gold to get more Time's Guide Stones. I sell them on the auction house as well. Now, for the optimizations themselves, remember that this is a brief overview of a very big topic. It's too much to squeeze into one video. To find more details, I'm leaving as much resources as I can in the description. Operation Hope buff enhancement gear, which is also called buff swap gear. The gear itself is not actually worn, but rather used to enhance your class buff skill. The dungeon itself is 3 times a week and very easy with level 100 sets. The ones you want can drop, buy the rest from Severin, takes about 4 to 6 weeks to complete the entire set without events. For the special equipment slot, buy Encroach for the plus 3 skill level to your buff skill, especially if you're new. Reinforcing your weapon, this is for percent classes. This takes a lot of gold to get to plus 10. This is done via NPC Kiri. Refining your weapon, this is for fixed classes. It is done via NPC June, the blacksmith in Suju area. This doesn't cost gold, but you do need lots of powerful energies as these are untradeable. Sources of powerful energy are Joe Pharaoh Dungeons, which is 3 times a week. Guild Dungeon Merchant sells it once every day. Mileage Shop also sells them, but just make sure you don't want the points for anything else. Redtail Jonathan also sell them for Terrarium. Refinement caps out at plus 8, but the chances of going from plus 7 to plus 8 is very low. Since reinforcement and refinement cost a lot of resources, save some gold and powerful energies and come back to it after a while. Enchantment. Really, there's enough information on enchanting to be its own video. This part only goes over the main points, and I'm also leaving another link to an enchanting guide in the description. The main purpose of enchanting is hitting critical chance cap and stacking elemental damage, which are 2 of the most efficient ways to increase damage. Critical chance enchantments go on shoulder, belt, and shoe slots. Go for at least the Noble Sky Bijou beads from Anton Subjugation dungeons. Each bead gives 5%, totaling to 15% critical chance. Anton Subjugation itself is very easy, but they can be very gimmicky, so be careful. I made another video to showcase the gimmicks of Anton Subjugation dungeons. It's linked below in the description. The beads can also be bought at the auction house. They are not too expensive. For elemental damage, first make sure you're actually inflicting an elemental damage via your weapon, your class, or cube contract. Elemental damage and chance go on weapon, accessories, and magic stones. Weapons have plus 12 unique cards from Prey Raid. You can buy it, these aren't expensive. Accessories aim for at least plus 20 elemental damage on each piece. That's also unique cards. It's a little bit more pricey, but it's worth it. Magic stone. Get at least plus 15 from the unique rosin card from Fiend War. There are also other raw stat enchantments you can get. Top, bottom, and sub-equipment slots have physical attack, magical attack, and independent attack and chance. Make sure you pick the one that works for your class. Personally, I skimp on this a little bit because the scaling on these stats isn't as good as the elemental damage. I do recommend Celebrant Arad card for top and bottom armor. It's not too expensive. For the sub-equipment slot, just go with a rare card. It's good enough for now. Earring slot have the all-stat enchantments. You can run Luke Subjugation. This is easy in level 100 legendary gear, but it does take a little while. A few quick notes before we move on. Buffer classes want as much of their buffing stats as possible, so they will have to choose the different cards that I mentioned here. The stats for each classes are Intelligence for Female Crusader and Enchantress, and Vitality or Spirit for Male Crusaders. Talismans and runes are rewards that come from the Pandemonium War dungeon, which is a group-only dungeon that can be run 2 times a week. While some talismans are better than others, they can provide a DPS increase. With level 100 legendary gear, plus 10 weapon and budget and chance, normal pubs are doable, or you can blow through the guide mode for fewer rewards. The rewards are random, so some patience is needed here. To help with learning gimmicks, I left a guide in the description. For titles, auras, and pets, the typical standard is if you have something decent, people don't usually mind. Look for pets and titles with elemental damage, bonus damage, or bonus critical damage. You can also use plus skill level titles for combat passive skills of your class. These can be expensive, so save gold. Clone avatars and emblems can help provide more stats and cap out critical chances that you might need. Luckily, advanced clone avatars are relatively affordable on the auction house, usually. For emblems, the easiest method to get them is buying from the auction house. There are 3 tiers: bronze, silver, and gold. Bronze is dirt cheap, you find them on the ground. Go for silver, as gold emblems are very expensive in comparison. The emblems have different colors and go into corresponding slots on the clone avatars. The must-have emblems and their corresponding slots are Critical Chance, which are green, Intelligence or Strength, which are red. There are also some nice utility emblems, Attack Speed or Cast Speed, which are yellow, Movement Speed, which are blue. While this optimization is an effort that might take you a while, it'll be worth it, especially if you're a new player. Not only it sets you up for the Oculus, but also future content and gearing new characters as well. Once you hit that mixed epic and prey legendary gear setup, try your luck with Oculus pub parties. Just be patient, or you can make your own party. For best results, bring some friends if you can. At the end of all this, I hope this video helped.